A few years ago, something happened to me that changed my life forever. It altered my course and has consumed my every moment since. Back then, I was working as a junior doctor in a central London clinic when my last patient, Marvin, walked in. He had cuts on his hands, he was unkempt, he looked emaciated. I was concerned for him, but what I learned next shocked me. Marvin had recently become homeless, and when he reached out to his friends and family for help, they did not want to know. He hadn't eaten for days. He had nowhere to sleep. He had no money. I was concerned for him. And as he told me his troubles, and we spent almost an hour together treating him and putting plans into place to get him back on his feet, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of anger and sadness. That evening, I met up with friends and told them what had happened. They weren't medics, but they too had seen similar things. They too were growing frustrated. Over tea, in a garage in North London, we shared our dreams of a world where humanity was the benchmark, where compassion was the cornerstone, where you were judged by the content of your character. All of us had a hero in common, Hussein, a 7th century revolutionary, a man who saw that tyranny and injustice had become widespread in his society and was faced with the choice that we all face, the right thing to do or the easy thing to do. Hussein chose to do the right thing. He took a stand for social justice, giving up everything, including his life, to uphold the dignity of his society. We found ourselves asking the question, who are the Husseins of today? Who would champion the cause of the downtrodden? Who would help those whose society had forgotten? One of us spoke up. Maybe we should do something. We paused as the silence allowed us to realize the obviousness of the truth, that the world wouldn't change, that we had to change the world. That night, we resolved to do something. We decided to sleep in the streets of London for one night alongside the homeless, to show our solidarity and to raise much-needed funds. After 7 weeks, we raised £15,000 for the homeless. But in one night, all of us learned to walk the talk. Taking inspiration from Hussein's stand for social justice, we called our initiative, Who is Hussein? What surprised us was that this simple act of compassion, being the change that we wanted to see, proved to be infectious. Some 7 years later, Who is Hussein is an international charity with over 1,000 volunteers operating in 29 countries and 65 locations around the world. When people hear this, I tend to get asked one of two questions. The first, searching for an explanation. How did you do it? And the second one that sounds similar but just feels a little different. Yes, but how did you do it? Today, I want to share the answer to these questions. There were 3 key steps that lay at the heart of everything that we achieved. Steps that can be taken by anyone to achieve anything. The first step was actually the most simple, summed up by one word: initiate. Start. Jump in at the deep end. Take the plunge. That's what we did. Despite being fresh-faced youth, despite having no experience, despite all of the challenges we faced, we just started. It seems so obvious, but you can't achieve anything without actually beginning. And with our simple mission to improve the lives of others, we were able to create something from nothing. Yes, but how did you do it? Well, rest assured, if we can, then anybody can. And the first step is taking the first step. The second step on this journey was the hardest to learn, but proved to be the most powerful to date. At the same time that Who is Hussein had started, I had begun to volunteer doing medical relief work abroad, working in the clinics of war-torn Iraq, or the Greek island of Lesbos, where refugees were arriving daily. It was easy to gain a false sense that I was going to somehow single-handedly heal the world. Determined to make a difference, I threw myself into more projects, taking on extra responsibility. But the more I took on, the more I was becoming stretched across different initiatives, the more I was becoming exhausted. And I wasn't the only one. Who is Hussein was growing rapidly. And as more people reached out to join our movement, more people were depending on us. Evenings became filled with work and worry in equal measure. We were struggling. And more importantly, the projects were suffering. It was hard at first for me to admit that I wasn't coping. And it took a few crisis meetings for us to realize that we as a team weren't coping. We knew that we couldn't do this alone, that we needed support. So we reached out for assistance, to involve others, to share the responsibility. And suddenly, we were able to get more done. As things started to improve, we encouraged others to take ownership, to lead. And the results spoke for themselves. For 6 years now, every week, our teams are in the streets of London and Birmingham feeding the homeless. Our Lebanon team have twice broken national blood donation records. And just last year, our India team distributed 75,000 meals. With the Times of India running the headline, "Today the poor won't go hungry." And I had barely been involved. None of these achievements were mine. Of course, it would have been easy to let you think that I was a maverick genius doing amazing things on my own. The cold, hard reality is that I have no more skill or ability than anybody in this room. That behind our success was the power of teamwork, the collective effort of thousands of anonymous individuals working with one common purpose. And so, the second step on this journey that I want to share with you is summed up by one word: cultivate. By cultivating and creating an atmosphere of trust and support, by nurturing the talents of others, we can create communities of change. The final step on this journey was the glue that held everything together. The single biggest tool at our disposal to ensure that none of our efforts faltered. It's something that we all have in common, something that ties each and every one of us to inspirational figures like Hussein, or Martin Luther King, or Maya Angelou. We have time. And what's more, it's our time. In 1 week, we have 168 hours. 7 times 24 is 168. Take out time for eating, for sleeping, working, commuting, and the 10 or so minutes it's taken to listen to this talk, and we're still left with roughly 3 to 4 hours a day to spend however we would like. And if we're still too busy, and if we still don't have time, then what we're really saying is, it's not a priority. If we're truly passionate about something, we need to make time to pursue it. We need time to initiate. We need time to cultivate. Making time is the single biggest step we can take to achieving our goals. And using that time, we can achieve anything. Just look at Who is Hussein. It was an initiative that was meant to last 7 weeks. Yet 7 years later, it has become a movement that has spread from a garage to the globe. And we faced many of the same challenges that the people in this room face. We have full-time jobs. We have families to look after. We have other commitments. All we did was use snippets of time in our day, breaks at work, commutes, spare time in the evenings or weekends to work on what we were passionate about. Isn't that what it's all about? Using the small moments on things that actually matter. And it hasn't all been smooth sailing. It never will be. There are friends here who I wish I saw more of, and social events I wish I hadn't missed. I still get it wrong. I'm still working on it. There'll always be ups and downs, but the key is to persevere. Sometimes we forget that results don't happen overnight. They happen over time. And the secret to creating time is there is no secret. We have time. We just have to use it. The third step, the final step to getting to where you want to be, is to dedicate yourself wholeheartedly to your goal and to make time to achieve it. Recently, I called my old clinic to see how Marvin was doing. The doctors told me that he had left the practice a few years after I had, but not before dropping in to let them know that he was back on his feet, that he had found a job, that soon he would have a roof over his head. Marvin had transformed his life, and though he didn't know it, he had transformed mine too. And in that process, I learned that there were 3 fundamental steps at the heart of any transformation: initiate, cultivate, and dedicate. In short, if you want to create something from nothing, then say it, be it, infuse it in others, and dedicate yourself wholeheartedly to it. Change-making does not belong to a hero or a specific group of people, and it certainly does not belong to a group of dreamers sitting in a garage in North London. Change-making belongs to all of us. And even if you can't change the whole world, why not start by changing your world? Whatever you want to do, whatever world you want to create, whatever changes you want to make, stop asking, how did you do it? Instead, as Arthur Ashe said, start where you are. Use what you have, do what you can.